Chapter 2. The bulk of this chapter is devoted to the topic of economic systems, but we'll start by looking at the concept of opportunity cost. We, as members of society, must choose among competing uses of limited resources because resources are scarce. We do not have an abundant, unlimited supply of natural resources such as water, coal, and land. So once a choice is made, the cost of that which is given up or not selected is the opportunity cost. It's the cost of an alternative that must be given up in order to proceed with a decision. In other words, it's the benefits you could have received by making an alternative choice of action. It's the cost that we all pay for a particular choice. Let's illustrate it with an example. Let's say a person works in a large city but chooses to live in the suburb. What is his or her opportunity cost? It's the expense of travel, time spent on the road, and the frustration of long daily commutes. Therefore, we've all heard of that saying, "There's no such thing as free lunch." What about elementary school free lunch programs? What is the opportunity cost of eating school-provided free lunch? Once you choose to eat school-provided free lunch, the cost, assuming you cannot eat double portions, is not having better tasty food from home. What is the opportunity cost of going to college? It's the money you would have earned if you worked. For 4 years spent in school not working, assuming you're going full-time, you lose 4 years of salary while getting your degree. So why do people do it? It is hoped that you could earn more during your career after graduation because of your education, to offset the loss in wages. What is the opportunity cost if you decide to grow carrots in your yard? It's the cost of the alternative crop that might have been grown instead, like tomatoes, strawberries, etc. Why is this analysis useful? Because it can help you find the trade-off that is inherent in every decision. Before we buy anything, as economists, we ought to think about the trade-offs first. Suppose that you want to purchase a CD of your favorite artist. Have you ever stopped to think about how many hours of gratification you would receive from listening to it before you get sick and tired of it? The joy is the benefit you anticipate from the CD. Now you look at the cost. Let's say it's $10. Then in your mind, you make a comparison on a pair of balances. On the left side is $10, the cost. On the right side, the benefit of gratification from listening to the music. If the balance tilts to the right, that is, the benefit outweighs the cost, then you buy the CD. So the general inclination is that we do something only if the benefit outweighs the cost. Suppose again you're walking on the sidewalk and you see 10 pennies on the ground, separated by 3 feet. Should you pick them up? Theoretically speaking, yes, because you're just walking, and with 10 cents, you compare them to nothing. They easily outweigh the cost of 0. But suppose you're in a hurry to an interview for a job that pays $100,000 a year, and you're running late, and you see the same 10 pennies on the ground. Should you pick them up if it will make you late and sweaty, thereby risking the possibility of not getting the job? Of course not. It's clearly not worth your time, or not worth a dime. So you see how opportunity cost is so important to this analysis. That's why we should change the rule to this. We do something only if the benefit outweighs its opportunity cost. In this second scenario, the benefit of 10 cents does not outweigh the cost of $100,000 a year. I remember doing a construction project that required the use of ground stakes, but my contractor and I thought very much like an economist. Each stake at a retail store sells for about $1, but he knew how to cut from scrap wood using his circular saw to make the stakes. I bought him a good blade for $7, and he saved me a lot more money from buying hundreds of these stakes. So every time he cuts a steak, he says, "There goes another hamburger. There goes another box of fries. There goes 2 cherry pies." Now we start the discussion on economic systems. We live in a world of many nations and governments. Nations form and power struggles are constant. Those who achieve power may have their own ways of controlling the nation's economy. Generally speaking, there are 2 major kinds of economic systems. The border between the two is not always clear. It is rather a matter of degree, as shown in this diagram. The span of economic systems. From the extreme left, you see pure socialism. Then moving towards the right, you see mixed socialism. Both of these are a command economy. Then moving even more to the right is mixed capitalism. You see how there is no dividing line to cross. Then at the extreme right is pure capitalism. Both of these are a market economy. Let's look at them closely. First, if the government of a nation makes most of the economic decisions, it is called the command economy, or socialism or communism. Under this form of economic system, the government owns all major resources and produces goods and services according to its interpretation of its citizens' needs. Let me just note that we're just here to study the economic systems and not politics. So we're looking at this from an academic point of view, not political. There was a socialist by the name of Karl Marx. He was a philosopher. Marx said, "Democracy is the road to socialism." He predicted that capitalism would fail because capitalists, motivated by profits, would force labor providers to work for lower and lower wages. Then few capitalists would be rich and the rest poor. Workers would then revolt and overthrow the capitalists and seize the wealth. Then it would result in a classless society where all would willingly work according to their abilities and receive goods according to their needs. Next, capitalism. Under this system, majority of decisions about production and distribution are made by private individuals in competitive markets. It is also known as market economy. There is no single one-line definition for it, but it is characterized by several traits. First, in a pure market system, the government's role is to provide only defense needs and a judicial system that will protect the rights of individuals and foster competitive markets. Defense is important so that citizens of other nations don't rob the wealth of the nation producing it. Judicial system is important in that parties who have been wronged, whether it be in a contract breach, tort liabilities, or criminal acts, may have a remedy such as damages, injunction, or specific performance given by the courts. And the courts are acting like agents of society. That is why when we have a jury trial, we select jurors from a cross-section of the community. Second, properties and natural resources are owned by private individuals. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Unlike certain countries where the house and the land you cultivate are all owned by the government, private ownership means you have rights to the properties, as you may have learned in Real Estate 101, the bundle of rights. Finally, the other characteristic of capitalism is that the people produce goods and services according to the supply and demand for them in a competitive market. What we mean by that is, let's say you dreamt up a product today, and you go and built it without doing any market research. Your product may or may not succeed in the market. Let's take a commercial break.
Do you get bored when driving cross-country? Are you jealous of the passengers who get to enjoy movies while you drive? Introducing the new Steering Wheel TV from Drive and Watch. It enables you to watch hundreds of movies on the way to New York or Florida. The new Steering Wheel TV system comes with complete easy touch buttons to control what you want to watch and the volume. It even has programmable timer to record the games you want to watch. If it's all cars, foreign and domestic, through this special TV offer only, you can have this system at an amazing price of just 4 easy payments of $19.99. And if you call within the next 30 minutes, we'll cut the price down to one low payment of $24.99. This offer is not available in any store or web, so call now. 1-800-555-CRASH. No warranty expressed or implied is hereby granted. Accidents and injuries may vary in degree. Caveat emptor. Contains parachlorobenzyl trifluoride, neon gas, and lead. Made in Atlantis.
Okay, we're back. As you can see, if I invent a steering wheel TV, I've just set myself up for failure. Why? Because in this market, the salability of my product is determined by the market's demand for it. In other words, it's a stupid, ridiculously dangerous product that no one is going to buy, which means there is no demand for it, and hence I will be out of business pretty quick. But you know, there are countries where the government requires everyone to buy whatever the government produces, even if the people have no need for it. Or the government is the sole provider of something that everyone needs. Usually, it is a command system. That's not capitalism. These were the traits of a pure economy. Now let's look at the 5 principles of capitalism. 1. Private property. This is the right of individuals to own, control, and dispose of property. 2. Private enterprise. This is where major resources such as coal mines and businesses are owned and controlled by private citizens. 3. Competitive markets. This is what I call the playing field of capitalism, and it gives everyone the opportunity to develop one's own product or service, using his or her own creativity, ingenuity, and craft, legally of course. It's the market in which many buyers and sellers are pitted against one another as they bargain for the exchange of goods and services. An example would be the flea market. There's a lot of sellers, some selling the same things as others, but they have to use their sales pitches and advertisements to attract buyers to make a purchase. 4. Profit motive. What motivates individuals to take risks and form businesses is the desire for profit. And I'm going to dig this a little deeper. What comes with profit is, of course, money, but money alone isn't the final product. If we analyze human nature, we would know that the ultimate motivation is not even buying a bunch of stuff, which is what money can do, but it's the satisfaction of an inner need, or what Maslow called the hierarchy of needs, from food and shelter to self-actualization. Put in simplest terms, it's the pursuit of happiness. People can find happiness in buying things that give some sort of pleasure. 5. Laissez-faire. This is the concept of hands-off by the government, that government should not interfere in the basic economic affairs of private citizens. So I'll throw these questions at you. Do you think laissez-faire should be absolute? What sort of situations or people can you think of where some hands-on government interference or assistance is needed? For example, the disabled and seniors, the naive, ignorant consumers, to protect against fraud, crooks, and loan sharks. But it's not always easy to strike a balance. Now that we've examined the 5 principles of capitalism, and there may be others, the question for us to think about is this. In the U.S., do we have a pure capitalistic economy? And the answer is no. It is known as mixed capitalism. Some would argue that today we have a socialist system. So as you can see, it's hard to tell what market systems we have because it's a matter of degree. How much government involvement must there be in order to constitute socialism or communism? It's not like any government is going to come out and announce, starting today, it is command economy or free market pure capitalism. What we have in this country is an economy in which goods and services are produced by private enterprises, and yes, we can still produce them, and the government plays an important role. Some will argue too much, others will argue too little. Well, what do you think? Either directly or indirectly in controlling the economy. We may all have our individual views, and that is why the book says economists can't agree with each other, because we're dealing with a nation of billions of people producing trillions of units of goods and services, which are becoming more and more complicated as technology advances. And the government is also involved in many areas. And who's to say what percentage of government involvement constitutes socialism? Here's a quote from the textbook. The government played a major role during the Great Depression. It did things that got the country out of the Depression and set up stabilizing systems of laws that were aimed at maintaining high employment and general stability of the economy. I'd like you to think about this. Let's say you have an economy that is fluctuating, so how do you feel about the need for some kind of control to cap the boom and base the recession or depression? What caused the last real estate boom? Some would say subprime borrowing, predatory lending, and hypes. Then when the bubble burst, should the government step in with regulation to prevent reoccurrence? Or the people should learn on their own, and the government should remain laissez-faire? These are questions to really think about as economists. We'll leave the topic of economic systems now and look at the factors of production. In order to produce anything in the economy, you need these 4 things. Land, including all the natural resources like trees, mineral, and water. Labor, defined as human work needed to transform raw material into finished products or to perform services. Capital, that's any manufactured instrument used to increase production, like machinery, tools, and buildings. Entrepreneurship, that's the assembling of other factors of production in a systematic manner to produce goods and services. The idea here is the owner is going into business. Let's put it all together in a diagram to come up with the circular flow of the economy. If you want to follow along on a piece of paper, I'm going to tell it like a story. First, draw 4 boxes in diamond formation. Think back to the Blue Angels, diamond formation. Start with the box on the right, where an individual is both buyer and seller. He or she sells his or her labor in the resource market, that's the upper box, by going to work, leasing land, or lending money or capital to the businesses. Next, the labor, land, and capital are then sold to the businesses. That's the box on the left. In other words, businesses buy the individual's land, labor, and capital from the resource market. Then the businesses will use the land, labor, and capital to produce goods and services and sell them at the product market, the bottom square. To complete the circle, we have to say the individual goes shopping at the products market and spends money. So money flows to the bottom square from the box on the right. He or she will then receive the goods and services to his or her house. That's the box on the right. The businesses receive the money in the form of revenue when they sell the goods and services. So the money flows to the box on the left. The revenue is used to pay for the land, labor, and capital because they're not free. So money is flowing out from the box on the left in the form of expenses. That would be rent for land, salary expense for labor, and interest expense for capital. That's money flowing to the resource market, the box on the top. And finally, the individual receives money in the form of income for labor, rental income for land, and interest income for capital. Now that completes the circle. Here are the diagrams put together. This is the one going counterclockwise. This is the one going clockwise. And here's the final diagram depicting the circular flow of the economy. Now be sure to go and work on the discussion for this chapter.